First Kings. Okay, so here are the certain key men of the Old Testament. So what is their relationship to salvation, to covenant, and so on? So Adam, what's the main thing that he has contributed? You can unmute and answer. When you think of Adam, what's the importance, the relevance, the events?
Rebellious.
Rebellious. Okay. So Adam is, from Adam we know about how we are created, who created us, and so on, the creation story. But unfortunately, we also know why we are in a lot of problem because of sin and so on. Okay. Abraham, what's the importance of Abraham? It's okay if your words are different from mine. That's not important. Just what is important about Abraham? When you think of Abraham, you think of
as a blessing to all people through
blessing.
Jesus.
Okay, in his time, not yet through Jesus, but it led to Jesus. So the blessing, that part is covenant. Okay, so God is a covenant God, and we recognize grace and faith. Abraham believed in God, and God reckoned him as righteous. Okay, God didn't make Abraham righteous. After that, he still make mistakes and all that. Okay, so there's a difference between God make you righteous and God reckons you righteous. Okay, so for us, we don't talk about God made us righteous. We talk about God reckons us righteous. God didn't impart righteousness. God imputed righteousness. Yeah. Never mind. Let's go on. So Jacob is the father of the nation. Why? Because he married 4 women, 2 sisters and their maids, and had 12 children. The 12 children became the nation of Israel. Okay, so what about Joseph? What's Joseph's contribution to the history of
Exodus from Egypt?
Not yet.
Jacob.
This Joseph.
Jacob's favorite son.
But what's the
And
importance to him in terms of?
he was sold. Yeah, he was sold by his brother to slave traders, and he went to Egypt, and then in Egypt, what should I say? He became Pharaoh's right hand man.
Right.
Yeah.
And through that, Israel, the Jewish Hebrews were provided a place to stay, and it is there that Israel grew as a nation, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so Israel grew in the safety of Egypt, which is a superpower. Moses?
Moses lead the Exodus from Egypt.
Exodus,
and also
okay.
the law
Yeah.
given.
Yeah. So the important thing is that he is the one through whom the law comes. Okay, so grace and law. So law comes through Moses from God. Joshua? He's the one God used to?
To the promised land.
Promised land. Okay, God promised the land, but just because God promised is not just automatically comes to you. You need to do something about it. He acted, he conquered the land and then divided the land, gave it, distributed to the Israelites. Okay, period of Judges is not a person, but the key thing is in those days there's no king and everybody did what is right and there's a cycle going around. This is the unfortunate state of human beings. Until today, your life, my life, the church life, the nation life, we are all going through this cycle. Unfortunately, we are caught in this cycle. Okay, Samuel, what is the importance of Samuel, Prophet Samuel?
First prophet.
I mean, there are many prophets, Moses and all are also prophet, but he's the one that
There's a right vow.
In line with covenant, salvation. Okay, through him comes the first king, right? He's the one who installed the first king, King Saul. So King Saul is the first king, but then being first doesn't mean you're the best or the most important. He was just a in between, not a key person in that sense. And then David is his second king. But what's important about David?
He's a man after God's own heart.
Correct.
In terms of salvation,
in terms of salvation, then Christ will come through his line.
The Messiah comes through the line of David. Solomon, important thing about Solomon,
Wisest man.
not important. That's his
Reveal
in
God's
personal life. Temple,
God's
okay?
temple in
Temple,
Jerusalem.
right. Rehoboam, okay, we haven't studied. So Rehoboam is the fourth king. And unfortunately, during his time, the kingdom of Israel split into two. Jeroboam is the guy who took over the split, the
Judah
other
and
part.
Israel.
And then he's the one who caused Israel, the northern kingdom's exile. And Manasseh, who comes later in Judah's life, he's the cause for Judah's exile, okay?
Yeah.
Right. So looking at all the blue color, as opposed to the red color, what's the difference between the blue and the red? Anyone can kind of give an idea?
Blue represents good. The red represents bad. No, not necessarily.
Covenant bad, law is
Yeah,
bad.
no.
Cannot be.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's not.
No, because sometimes it's like when you think
Yeah.
of red marks and blue marks.
Right.
mah.
Red mark means fail.
Sorry? What's that?
Red
Oh,
mark
red
means
mark fail.
fail.
Okay, stop being teachers. This is not a classroom. Okay, blue things, you can group them into one thing, red things into another things. Okay, the blue is more on the physical Israel, the nation, the growth of the nation, the land, the king, and the kingdom divided and all that, and then going to exile. The red is more on the spiritual side of things, the covenant, the law giving, the Messiah, the temple, and all this stuff, okay? Now, God took 700 years from the time of Abraham, who received the covenant, 700 years to unite the nation, you know, let them grow in Egypt, bring them out, go to Mount Sinai, receive all the thing, 40 years wilderness, everything, and then come to conquer the land, judges, everything, Saul, David, Solomon. 700 years it took for God to make Abraham's descendants into a united nation. God promised, I'll make your descendants kings and give you a nation. So 700 years. And men took less than 400 years to divide and destroy that nation. Who's more powerful, God or man? So God can bless us, but unfortunately we can ruin the blessings very fast. So just because we receive blessing doesn't mean we can relax, and we should be on our guard and not take our Christian blessings for granted. Okay, so the lesson is, even if you are a Christian, you don't assume things. You have to guard yourself. Okay, now it's been 2,000 years since the church has existed. Okay, 2,000 years of church history, slightly more. The church is divided into denomination, divided even within the church. There's division and all that. People, I like this, I like that, I support this guy. Unfortunately, all this still exists, but not destroyed by the grace of God. The gates of hell will not prevail against the church of God. So we thank God that despite all our failures, our flaws, our foolishness, God's grace and mercies watch over us, our personal life, our families, our church, our nation. So ultimately, we depend on God for all good things. Okay, so this is not about Book of Kings, but general. Okay, now we come to Book of Kings. Right, move. Okay, so in the English text, in the English Bible, you have 1 Samuel, 2 Samuel, 1 King, 2 King. In the Greek, it's 1 kingdom, 2 kingdom, 3 kingdom, 4 kingdom. There's no Samuel. Okay. In the Hebrew, it is only Samuel and Kings, just 2 sections, Samuel and Kings, just for your knowledge. Okay, so in the Book of Kings, the nation will be divided into 2 parts, the Northern Kingdom and the Southern Kingdom. Okay, and you need to know the terminology used to refer to the Northern Kingdom and the Southern Kingdom. So the Northern Kingdom is called Israel. Okay? Israel, we know, is the whole nation. But when they divide North and South, the North retains the title Israel. So when you see Israel, it could refer to the whole Israel or only to the Northern Kingdom. Okay. The Northern Kingdom sometimes is called Samaria because Samaria is the capital. So they just called by the name of the capital. Okay, so if you say Moscow, you're talking about Russia, you're talking Washington means USA, the kind of stuff lah. And Ephraim is the leading tribe, the number of tribes, and the leading tribe is Ephraim. For the southern kingdom, the nation is called Judah, and the capital is Jerusalem. So when they say Jerusalem, it means Judah, it means southern kingdom. And the leading, not tribe, because there are not many tribes in the south, the leading house or family is the house of David. Okay. Now, how many tribes belong to the north? How many belong to the south? Anyone knows?
In the north, 10 in the north and 2 in the south.
Exactly. And which 2 tribes are in the south? Anyone knows?
Judah and, is it Benjamin? I'm not very sure. No, Judah and
Say you really must be sure.
Simeon. Yeah.
Judah,
not
Benjamin,
so sure.
Simeon, there's 3. Okay, you're right. Judah and Benjamin is correct. Okay.
Okay.
So 10 tribes in the north, 2 tribes in the south, Judah and Benjamin. And you got confused, Simeon, because I also had this kind of confusion. Why? Because when we study the conquest of Israel and then the distribution of the land, every tribe has its own area in the map. When it comes to Simeon, where is Simeon? Simeon is quite unique lah. Okay, the Levites are so unique. The Levites don't have land. The Levites are distributed all over because they are priests. They need to be all over. Simeon is within the boundaries of Judah. They're given towns and cities within Judah. So they didn't have a separate land. They were inside of Judah. Okay. And so when you think of the southern kingdom, naturally you think, oh, must be Judah and Simeon because they are the 2 in the south. And Simeon is inside Judah. And over time, you expect them to mix, mingle, become one people. So when you talk about the southern kingdom, you think it will be these 2, Judah and Simeon. But in reality, it's not. Okay, it's Judah and Benjamin. So how come, what happened to Simeon? How is it not in the south? I don't have the answer also. Okay, so some people say Simeon moved from the south and went later to the north. Some tribes moved from designated place, they went other place. So Simeon may have done that. I don't know. So I try to look up, but I can't find. Nobody seems to know the clear answer. But anyway, when we talk about the southern kingdom, it's Judah and Benjamin based on 1 Kings 12:21. Okay. Now, all of God's appointed kings, meaning King Saul, King David, King Solomon. Okay. And of course, for Judah, all the kings of Judah, they all came from the tribe of Judah and Benjamin. David, Solomon, their father, son, and all their children, all from Judah. Saul comes from Benjamin. Okay. So there are only 2 tribes that contribute kings, Judah and Benjamin. And if you remember what we study about Genesis, Jacob married, he had 4 wives, 2 sisters, the elder sister Leah, the younger sister Rachel, and each of them had 1 maid. He also married the maids. So he got 4 wives. And so Judah comes from Leah. Leah had 6 children. The 4th child was Judah. Rachel had how many children? Anyone knows?
2.
2. Who are the 2?
Joseph and
Joseph and Benjamin, yes.
Joseph and Benjamin. So Benjamin, Saul comes from Benjamin, and he's the descendant of Rachel. Okay, Judah is descendant of Leah. When the kingdoms divide north and south, the northern tribe, Ephraim, okay, is the leading tribe. Ephraim comes from Joseph. Joseph had 2 children, Manasseh and Ephraim, right? Manasseh, Ephraim. And so Ephraim is from Joseph. Joseph is the child of Rachel. Okay. So that means even the northern tribe, at least the first guy is from Rachel. After that, they got many dynasties, may not be, cannot trace anymore. Okay, so the beginning, all of them are all from these 2 sisters. And the children of the maids were not in the kingship, at least not in the beginning for the northern kingdom. Okay. Just an interesting thing that I noted, that's all. Okay, why was Ephraim the leading tribe? In Joshua, when they came, they gathered at Shiloh, which is in Ephraim. Joshua is buried in Ephraim. Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the high priest, also buried in Ephraim. The judges, Ehud, he was operating in Ephraim. Deborah, the judge, was in Ephraim. Gideon, the judge, Ephraim. Tola, the judge, in Ephraim. So many of the judges, they are all from Ephraim. Okay. Jeroboam, when the nation divided to north and south, the first king of the north is Jeroboam. He fortified Shechem in the hill country of Ephraim and lived there. So he set up his kind of capital down there. So Ephraim was traditionally the center of importance before Jerusalem comes and all those things. Okay, and so when they break from Judah and Jerusalem, naturally they turn to Ephraim, and that becomes a popular tribe. Okay. So if you look at the sources for the book of Kings, hang on, I'll mute everyone again. Okay, look at the sources of the book for the book of Kings. If you look to, you don't have to, I will tell you the answer. Okay, so it tells us for Solomon, when Solomon dies, right, says, oh, these are the things that Solomon did and so on. If you want to know more, it's all written in the book of the Acts of Solomon. And then for the other kings of Israel and Judah, when their life ends, they say, oh, this is what the king did, And if you want to know more for the kings of Judah, look at the annals of the kings of Judah. And for Israel, look at the annals of the kings of Israel. Okay. And 2 Kings chapter 18 verse 13 up to chapter 20 verse 19. It's interesting if you read this and compare to Isaiah chapter 36 to 39. It's pretty identical. Okay. More or less, it's about the same. First Chronicles, record of Samuel the seer, the record of Nathan the prophet, and the record of Gad the seer. Second Chronicles, record of Shemaiah the prophet and Iddo the seer. And Second Chronicles 33:19 says, refer to the record of the seers and so on. So why I tell you all these things? Because the book of Kings is written over a few hundred years, 387 like that, okay? So it's not one guy has witnessed the whole thing, okay? So different guys have written, they've captured different parts of the history, okay? And the kings have people who will record down what happened in the kingdom, okay? Historians kind of thing. They have scribes who will record down what happened to the king. But traditionally, they don't write the bad thing. They only write the good thing. But for Israel, they also do write the bad thing. Okay, then the Isaiah's prophecy is, it's not prophecy. Isaiah, in the book of Isaiah, there's a narrative portion which is captured here in Kings. And then the different prophets, not all, they are writing prophets and non-writing prophets. So there are prophets who write records, keep their records and so on. So the book of Kings, it's not just like God inspired and they just close their eye and they like printer just write. It's not like that, okay? They actually have to go and refer to material, research, and then compile these things, okay? So you need to understand it's written over a few hundred years. One man didn't witness everything that happened, and different people wrote different sections. Somebody compiled the whole book of Kings. Okay. Now, this is a researched work. The book is a researched work. What other books are researched? Luke and Acts, because the author to Luke and Acts says, here is what I've researched, and here's a record of what I'm telling you, and so on. Okay. So all this basically to help us understand what it means the Bible is inspired. Okay, the Bible is inspired, different from Muslim. Muslim is, Prophet Muhammad went to the cave and then he went into a trance, and then God spoke to him, and he memorized everything, and then he kind of regurgitated, and people wrote it down, memorized it first, and later wrote it down. There's another version says, oh, God gave the whole book. There's a golden Quran in heaven, that kind of thing. Okay, so there are many, but main thing is for the Muslim, when they say the Quran is God's word, is what they mean is every word, every dot, every full stop is from God. 100%, word for word, and so on. Okay, but that's not what we Christians believe when we say the Bible is inspired. When the Bible is inspired, it means God gives certain understanding, certain ideas, certain things. And the Bible, if you read it in its original language, different books are written in different personality. Some of the books, they are written by people who are very intellectual, very educated. So the Hebrew or the Greek is high quality Hebrew, high quality Greek. Others were just not as well educated. So they are Hebrew, they are Greek, not as good as some of the others are. You can compare like Shakespeare English to normal English, or the king, meaning the court English compared to church English, compared to street English. Okay, there are different kind of English. So the books of the Bible, they are not all consistent, all written in the same personality, all different. Okay, and Paul sometimes when he writes says, I write this with my own hands, because some other things he didn't write with his hand. He asked people to write. They just, okay. So the books of the Bible is compiled by different people and so on. So our understanding of inspired is not the same as the Muslim understanding of inspired. Okay. Inspiration through perspiration. That's what I believe. So when I preach sermons and all, I don't say, oh, yeah, just go there, God will give me the word. Jesus promised what? When you go there, you just open your mouth, words will just flow. No, to spend time think. Even this material, 10 minutes before class, I'm still editing, and 20 minutes before, then I went to shower and then came. Okay, so inspiration doesn't mean you don't put in effort. Basically, that's the point I'm making. Any questions on this before we move on? Inspiration. So is the Quran therefore more highly inspired than the Bible? Because it's word for word from God, and Bible is not word for word? What if a Muslim tells you that, what will your reply be? You won't reply, you'll keep quiet.
No, Pastor, I think I will take it that the Bible is inspiration from God. God involved himself with men,
Right,
to have the Bible written.
right.
Whereas for the Quran, there is no involvement. Human is not involved in the formation of the Quran.
Human is involved in the sense that the words came to Muhammad, and then he teach his disciple all memorize until such a time when they start writing it, and then later they had to compile the whole Quran together. So there's also human involvement. But the claim is for the Muslim is every word, every dot, every sentence, every phrase is from God. But Christians say, no, that's not how the Bible is inspired. So just taking it at face value, if you accept both what they say, the Quran is word for word from God, Christian is not word for word, then looks like, oh, the Quran is much more inspired. Then how to answer that?
It's more of a cut and paste from the Bible.
You mean the Quran? I mean, certain stories and all, yeah. But anyway, to them, they say it just comes from God. Okay, we don't want to argue with them whether whatever. We just take their claim face value. Okay, so I accept the fact that you say your Quran word for word is from God. Therefore, I accept that is the truth. And I say my Bible is not word from God. God inspired man, give them thoughts and processes, thinking, and then they came Okay, so we accept these two as the truth kind of thing, if you want. So we start with this point, and then we say, so which is more accurate? Or it seemed that the Quran is more accurate in the sense, like, well, word for word from God, but Bible is got man's contribution, man's compilation, and all those things. Okay, so firstly, if the Quran is word for word from God, then you must ask, in which language did it come? Obviously Arabic, right? Because Muhammad was in Arabia. So the word for word is from God, meaning if I accept the Quran, then only the Arabic version is the true version. Any translation means it's no longer word for word. You understand? If you translate the Quran to English, Chinese, Malay, then the Malay, English, Chinese version is not word for word from God. Only the Arabic can be word for word from God. Okay. Secondly, common sense, whether it's Chinese, English, Malay, Tamil, I don't care what language. Every language evolves. Okay, the word that you use in Chinese, Tamil, English, after a few centuries, the word has changed meaning. So you have to find new words and so on. Okay, so for example, the Bible, the Holy Spirit, last time it's called Holy Ghost. But the word ghost became frightening. Wow, ghost, ooh, and then children all get scared, believe in Holy Ghost. Oh, I don't believe in Holy Ghost. So they have to find, but the meaning of ghost last time is spirit, but now it's changed to spooky thing. So we changed the word to means to reflect the true meaning, which is spirit. Okay, so now we use the word Holy Spirit. And so no language remains constant. Languages evolve over time, and like I said, even in the English, you got the King's English, the court English, and then the street English, and so on. Tamil, we got a different kind of Tamil. The madrasa Tamil in Madras, and the people very low class kind of Tamil. Okay, sorry to say like that. Then I speak street colloquial. I speak colloquial Tamil. And then there are some churches, if I go and sit there, I cannot minister in those churches because they're using church Tamil. Okay, so it sounds nicer. It's more one Chinese in Taiwan, Chinese in China, Chinese in Singapore. Although a lot of similarity, but also got difference, right? So there's no language which is constant. If God gives 100% word for word in any language, doesn't matter what language, that message cannot remain the same forever, because languages change, people change, and so on. Okay, so that is the reason why God didn't give word for word and so on. Okay, what God gave is the message. Okay, so the way I explain is, if I were to tell you, David, can you tell our church people that pastor will not be coming to church this Sunday because he's got stomach issue, but pastor wants everybody to know that he loves every one of you, he's praying for you. Tell them this thing. Now if David goes there and say, hey everybody, Pastor Andrew not here, not feeling so good lah, but he loves you lah. He say like that, okay? The words are different, but is the message gone through? Basically what I told he said, right? So it's not important what words you use, it's whether you accurately transmit the message. Okay, so when we say the word of God, we don't mean every word, every full stop, every dot. We mean the message of God. The message of God is inspired, meaning from last time until now, the gospel message is true. You may have different versions of the Bible, Chinese, English, Malay, I don't care. You can have a Good News Bible, NIV, King James, whatever. You read all of them, the central message must be consistent. That we are all sinners, that we cannot save ourselves. There's a God who loves us, and God sent his son to die for us. Jesus lived, died for us. He resurrected, he ascended, he will come back again. If this message is clearly conveyed, then it doesn't matter whether you speak English, Chinese, Tamil, Malay, what kind of English, what kind of Tamil, it doesn't really matter. The message is what God is after. Okay, so when we speak of the word of God, we are talking about the message of God, not the letters, the alphabet, the characters, and so on. Okay. Okay, let's move on. The time period and the author of the book of First Kings and Second Kings. First King begins with the transition from David to Solomon. So we have studied Samuel. Samuel has transitioned from the priest Eli to the prophet Samuel, and then the King Saul, from King Saul to King David, and then from David comes to Solomon. Okay, so the First King starts with transition from David kingship to Solomon's kingship, and because First King, Second King is together, is one book. Second King ends with the release of King Jehoiachin from Judah. Judah goes into exile. After 70 years, they come back. Okay, so Second King ends with this king released from prison in Babylon 37 years after Judah's exile. Thus, 1 King to 2 King spends a period of history from about 965 BC to about 550 BC. 300 over years, approximately 400 years. Okay, so your time period is about 400 years. Jewish tradition ascribes Jeremiah as the author of Kings. Since the last reference in Kings is to King Jehoiachin's treatment in exile, Jeremiah could not have written the last section of the book since he died by then. That's the first thing. Secondly, because it's 387 years history, Jeremiah couldn't have lived throughout, witnessed everything, right? Common sense, right? So Jeremiah, he only certain part of it. Okay, he's with eyewitness. Okay, so when you say he is the author, it doesn't mean he wrote everything or he's the eyewitness. Could be he compiled a major section until the day he died. From the time of David transition to Saul, he's got all those material. Remember the annals of Solomon, the annals of the kings. He's got all those records. He could have researched and everything. He could have put all that together. And then after he dies, somebody took Jeremiah's work and ended with a last bit after Jeremiah. They completed the whole thing. So that's a possible way of how this thing comes about. Okay, what's the relationship between the author and the time period of the events shown? So this is the text, Bible text. Then he went out to the spring and threw the salt into it, saying, "This is what the Lord says, I've healed this water, never again will it cause death or make the land unproductive. And the water has remained wholesome to this day, according to the word of Elisha had spoken." So this author, what is his time span? Could he have written this before certain thing or after certain thing? Could you write this statement today? If you write this statement today, if you write, "Oh, this is what the Lord says, I've healed this water, never again will it cause death or make the land unproductive, the water has remained wholesome to this day, according to the word Elisha spoke," would you be false? If you went to this place, to this spring, and the water is still clean, still can be drunk and everything, you can write this and say, "Yeah, God says you'll heal. And yeah, the spring is still productive. And until today, the water is still wholesome." If you write it, you're not wrong, right? So anyone could have written this from the day the water was healed until the water is still clean. If you went to this spring and you find the water is no longer clean, somebody messed it up, nuclear plant nearby, whatever messed up, then you cannot say the water remains wholesome to this day. So you and I cannot write if the spring is no longer in good condition, right? So it's from the time that the water was healed to the time until the time the water is no longer usable. And I do not know the state of these springs to tell you that. Okay, so whatever it is, the author could be writing anytime after the incident. That means after God has made the water clean, even thousands of years, as long as the water remains wholesome. If you visited this pool of water today, you could write the water has remained wholesome to this day, according to the word of Elisha and so on. So the author could be anyone after the incident until unless the water has become bad, then you have to stop. That's cannot right wholesome to this day. The Israelites persisted in all the sins of Jeroboam and did not turn away from them until the Lord removed from his presence as he warned through all his servants, the prophets. So the people of Israel were taken from their homeland into exile in Assyria, and they are still there today. Okay, so you take this statement. All the statements are from Book of Kings. Can you today write this? You cannot write. Why? Because he says, and they are still there, right? You cannot write, honestly, they are still there today, right? So you and I cannot write this. 100 years ago, cannot write. This thing is something that happened in the past, and the writer says they are still there today, meaning this author, this writer, has to be during the exile, okay? Because the people of Israel are taken from their homeland and into exile in Assyria, meaning the northern kingdom is exiled to Assyria. So the guy who's writing this, he's talking about at that time of the exile of the northern kingdom, not the southern, northern. So the time period for this guy is, the author is writing during the time of the exile of the northern nation of Israel into Assyria. Hence, the author is someone who lived during the exile of Israel in Assyria. Okay. Okay, one last one. The priest then brought the Ark of God's covenant to its place in the inner sanctuary of the temple, the most holy place. These poles were so long that their ends could be seen from the holy place in front of the inner sanctuary, but not from the outside of the holy place. And they are still there today, again from Book of Kings. So when you read this, you must know this author, he's talking about what? The temple, Solomon's temple. And he's saying in Solomon's temple, the Ark of God is in the most holy place, and the rod that used to carry the Ark can be seen from the holy place. Okay. So firstly, this guy has to be a priest. Because he's not a priest, he couldn't have, he needs to be in the holy place to witness this. So firstly, you know this author must be a priest, because non-priest cannot enter. Secondly, still there today, meaning during the existence of Solomon's temple. Once Solomon's temple is destroyed, cannot be the author, because he's saying still there today. Okay, so from different texts, the author is writing from the time of the existence of Solomon's temple. Nebuchadnezzar burned the temple in his 19th year. Hence, the author is someone from after the temple was dedicated to the 19th year of Nebuchadnezzar. Okay, so that's the time period. So the reason why I go through all this, you don't need to memorize whatever. So the three things, author can be anyone from Elisha. So if you draw a map, Solomon, Elisha, the first guy could be anyone from Elisha's time until the exile. Second guy has to be someone during the exile of the northern kingdom, Israel's exile, okay, until the return. And the third guy has to be someone when the temple was dedicated to the temple destroyed. So you can draw all these things and say, well, there could be different authors in different periods writing this. Okay. And if you understand the whole thing is 300 over, you cannot have one author. You can have one author or compiler, but not one eyewitness. There are different eyewitnesses who wrote different sections, and somebody compiled the whole thing together. Okay. Okay. So the Book of Kings covers the end of David's life to the 37th year of the exile of Jehoiachin. The author is not a first-hand eyewitness of all the incidences. The author could have the eyewitness of some parts, but not all. Since various source materials are cited, just now show you all the source material, the author is the final author is a compiler and possibly an editor. Compiler and editor slightly different. Compiler just gather and put together. Editor can make comments and all that. The compiler must have lived past the last event. So the one who finally completed the Book of Kings, King meaning first king, second king, must be someone who has lived after the exile. Okay. And then he got all these records from different prophet, different kings records. He take all these things and he put all together. And so there were number of authors who were eyewitnesses. Okay, so inspired doesn't mean people didn't do research work and so on. Okay, that is basically my point. Okay, the purpose of the Book of Kings. Okay, I never put 1 king, 2 king because I'm talking about the whole book together as one book. The books of Jeremiah and Ezekiel, if you read the prophet Jeremiah and Ezekiel, they imply that the people were bitter after the fall of Jerusalem. Jerusalem is southern kingdom. Northern kingdom already gone. Now southern kingdom also gone. And the people are in exile. So the people were bitter about the fall of Jerusalem and the loss of the temple. Why? Because the Jews were very proud of that God gave them covenant, God gave them law, God gave them the temple, God gave them the kingship, which is in Jerusalem. But now Jerusalem gone, the temple gone, you cannot practice your own faith, everything gone now, you know. So they believed that God has not treated them justly. And we are God's people, how can God allow us to go into exile? Unhappy. They believe God should have protected them from the Babylonian invasion and granted them blessings and prosperity. We are God's people. Shouldn't God protect us from the Babylonian? Shouldn't He bless us? Shouldn't He prosper us? This is their mentality. How come we are in exile? No, I'm happy with God. God's supposed to protect us. You know, that kind of stuff. Now, some of them were ready to abandon faith in God because He had not done as they believed He should. Oh, God didn't live up to my expectation. I don't want to believe in this God anymore. That kind of stuff. Now, Kings was written, the book of Kings was written to show this bitter and discouraged people that God had not mistreated them. It was Israel that mistreated God. He had been more faithful to the covenant He had made with them through the many years of their disobedience. So the book of Kings is telling you, look, guys, you want to know why you are in exile? Read what your ancestors did and what you guys did. Don't anyhow blame God. God has been faithful to you, but you guys consistently have been unfaithful. Okay? It's not just the book of Kings. The whole Bible, you can say, the Old Testament is a record against the Israelites. Okay? And to say God has been faithful despite all their nonsense and disbelief and idolatry and all that stuff. Okay, so the first part, the book of Jeremiah and Ezekiel says that the people were bitter about the loss of the temple and the fall of Jerusalem. They thought God mistreated them, God didn't protect them, God didn't bless them. What kind of people today, what kind of Christians today reflect this attitude? Unmute.
Remind me of those prosperity gospel church.
Oh, you read my notes already. Yeah. Prosperity gospel minded believers. Oh, pastor said once I believe in Jesus, no pain, no suffering, everything will be sweet, nice. How come my family got problem? How come my children got problem? How come my dog ate my cat ate my fish? Oh, my whole life is a mess. God is no good. Okay, blame God. Because I'm supposed to be blessed as a Christian. Okay, second part. Some of them were ready to abandon faith in God because He had not done as they believe He should. What kind of Christians are these?
Good weather Christian.
Fair weather Christian, rice bowl Christian, whatever you want to call it, immature believers. Like the Jesus telling the parable where word is sown, the seed is sown, some grow and some grow quite fast, but once the sun and the rain cannot take it, and then they die off. Okay, so they are believers who, oh, Jesus love me, Jesus give me, oh, I want. But the moment they have problem only, oh, I don't want Jesus anymore. Immature, never grow, and so on. Okay. Kings was written to show bitter and discouraged people that God had not mistreated them. It was Israel that mistreated God. He had been more faithful. So to whom does this third section apply? What kind of believers?
Okay.
Lutherans.
Only Lutherans? Well, it's to all believers, okay? Whether you are gospel-minded, prosperity-minded or immature, or even if you're a good, loyal Christian, everyone needs to understand this, that God is a faithful God. If any flaw, is because of us. We do not pursue God. We do not love God. We do not obey his words. We do not love our neighbors. We should. That's why we got a lot of problems and quarrels and all kind of frustrations in life. Okay. So the third section is for all believers. So I hope we are not prosperity-minded believers. I hope we are not immature. We are growing as Christians. And the way to grow as Christians is to understand God is good, despite what happens to me. Bad thing happened to me doesn't mean God is bad. Okay. God is good. In his nature, in his ontological, in his nature, he is always good. Okay. When he deals with us, sometimes he has to discipline us and bad things do happen to us. But not every bad thing happened to us is because of God, because there's still the devil who wants to kill, steal, and destroy. And then there's us, our foolishness, our stupid decisions, and so on. Since the prophets were around to tell the people of all their sins, various prophets tell different people about their sins and its consequences, why the need for this book of Kings? Right? I thought there's prophets, right, to tell people why you need Kings, the book of Kings. The prophets prophesize what is to happen and its consequences. They say this is going to happen. The book of Kings records what happened and its consequences. If the prophet say, oh, this is going to happen, that, but not, it didn't happen, who cares of the prophet? Right? We don't bother. But prophets only prophesy what is going to happen. Book of Kings records it happened. Just as the prophet says, these things happen. Okay. So the book of Kings verifies what the prophets prophesize. The prophets witness to their people of, oh, forget, there's one word missing, of their time. Okay. So the prophet is speaking to a certain group of people and in a certain time in history. But the book of Kings is talking to all peoples of all time. That's why we are reading. If you don't have the book of Kings, we won't know what happened in history. So the ministry of the prophet and the ministry of the word is two different things. Ministry of the prophet is limited to space, time, and so on. The word is eternal. Okay, the literary structure. Now, you don't need to know everything that I've said. It's just for your background information, okay, to understand and appreciate the book. Alternate accounts are given between the kings of Judah and Israel. So the book of Kings starts with Solomon. Then after Solomon is his son Rehoboam. And then after that, because there are two kingdoms, so they talk about the king parallel to Rehoboam, Jeroboam. And after Jeroboam, it depends whose son is coming and so on. So they try to alternate between the two kingdoms, try to give a chronological history of the two kingdoms in parallel, okay? Now, when you read the book of Kings, there are two parts. One is the ascension notice, who became king. The other one is the death notice, the king died. First, the king becomes a king. Second is, and then in between his life story. That's a pattern, okay? His ascension, his life, his death. So the ascension notice has a certain order, synchronization, and then you got identification, you got ascension, capital city, length, and so on. So for example, 2 Kings, in the 12th year of Jeroboam, son of Ahab, king of Israel. This is not about this guy. It's about this guy, Ahaziah, son of Jeroboam, king. So he's saying this guy began to reign. So the story is starting with about this guy. Okay, identification of the ascending, the king who's coming up. So this is about this guy, but it tells you this guy with relative to the other nation. This guy is a Judah, southern kingdom. And then talking in the northern, when this guy became king, who was the king on the other side? So that you can compare, okay? So that's the synchronization being done. So when this guy became king, Joram, son of Ahab, was the 12th year in reign in the north when this guy became king, okay? And this guy, Ahaziah, he was 22 years old, age of ascension. But this age of ascension is only given for the kings of Judah. Kings of Israel, they don't give the age. Not important. Kings of Israel, not important. Only kings of Judah important because of Davidic line. It tells how long the reign was at the capital. So he was in the capital, Jerusalem, and he reigned 1 year. Okay, it tells the name of the queen mother, the king's mother lah. Okay, but again only for the southern kingdom, not for the northern. So his mother's name was Atalia. Okay, and then it tells a theological wording about this king, whether the king is good or bad. But it's theological because good or bad in the eyes of the Lord. So this king was bad, did evil in the eyes of the Lord. Another king was good in the eyes of the Lord. Okay, so that's how each of the kings' ascension is noted. His demise, his death notice goes like this. As the other events of the reign of Jehoahaz, okay, this is the name of the king who died. All he did and his achievements, are they not written in the book of the annals of the kings of Israel? Source citation. So the author is saying that these are the things that happen, and you want to know more, go and read these annals of the kings of Israel. So he's giving his source citation. And then he's saying the king died, and what happened to him? He was buried in Samaria. So death and burial notice. Finally, it tells who became king. Note of succession. Okay, so the ascension and the death notices have a certain kind of a format. Okay, now literally challenges with King James and NASB. Some kings had double names. Okay, in Judah, there's a king who's called Azariah, who's also called Uzziah. Okay, so he's got two names. 2 Kings 15 uses the word Azariah, while 2 Chronicles 26, talking about the same guy, uses Uzziah. Why two different names? One reason is that Chronicles, this one, has a high priest named Ahaziah. Okay, so it's a king called Azariah and a high priest called Azariah. Two of them was Azariah. So not to confuse, they use the high priest name Azariah and the king's other name Uzziah. Okay, when the book of Kings, they're not interested in the high priest and the temple stuff, so they don't mention about the high priest. So there's only mention the king. So the book of King got no problem, just use his common name. But Chronicles, because they mentioned the high priest, they use a different name. Okay, so when you're reading King James Version and NASB, if you read this and this, you may end up thinking, hey, they're two different kings, kind of thing. So when I read a book of Kings last time when I was young, I will take down note about which king, how long he reigned. I make records lah. So I record. Then I go to Chronicle, record. Hey, how come these two, after him is supposed to be Azariah? How come he's Uzziah? I thought, hey, oh, Bible wrong leh. I thought, got mistake kind of thing, you know. So some people say, oh, Bible full of error because they don't understand this kind of things lah. Okay. And sometimes the king have same name as another king. Okay. In the case of Israel, within the northern kingdom, there are two kings who are named Jeroboam. Okay, King Jeroboam. Later, there's another King Jeroboam. There are two kings. So when you're reading, see Jeroboam, and then you come Jeroboam. Hey, I thought this guy died. I thought I read something about him. No, because you're reading about another Jeroboam. Okay, so one way to designate is call them Jeroboam 1, Jeroboam 2 lah. Jehoshaphat. Okay, in Israel, there's a king called Jehoshaphat, and there's also the same name for another king in Judah. So when you read this guy, then later you read, yeah, I thought this guy died just now, right? You get confused. Why? Because you're just now you're reading about the guy in the northern kingdom. Now you're reading the guy in the southern kingdom. They're two different kings. Same name, different kings. Okay. Or a combination of both. So you have this name Joash and Jehoash. They are the same guy. Okay, same guy. One guy got two names. Okay. So if you read King James Version or NASB, when you read 2 Kings chapter 11 to chapter 14, sometimes they use Joash, sometimes Jehoash. How come? I thought the king was Joash. No, how come this guy Jehoash? You thought are they two kings or what's happening? You get confused. NIV makes it simple. They just use one word or one name, Joash, throughout 2 Kings 11 to 14. They just use one, so you don't have confusion. But if you read King James and NASB, because they are literal translation, okay, they don't change it. If this is the name, they just put it on there. But NIV is written for most of us and make our life simple. Okay, we don't need to do research. They tell us, okay, you're talking about the same guy. So many of the kings had names starting with A and J. Okay, many of the kings had the name starting with A and J. Okay, why A and J? Adonai, Jehovah, trying to be godly. Who is Joash and Jehoash in 2 Kings chapter 11 to 12? So in verse 2 of chapter 11, it says Joash. Chapter 12 verse 1, Jehoash. And chapter 12 verse 19, go back to Joash. You're reading about this king, suddenly his name is Joash, some Jehoash, suddenly becomes Joash and so on. They're talking about the same guy, same person, okay? If you go to NIV and King James, you may get confused. But NIV has translated all to just one name, so the reader is not confused. Chapter 13 verse 10, in the 37th year of Joash, Joash is the king of Judah. He's got another name called Jehoash. At the same time, the king of Israel also is named Jehoash, and he is also called Joash. He also got two names. Okay, so both guys have got two names, identical name. So one is in Judah, one is in Israel. So it can be confusing. Chapter 13, verse 12, Joash fought against Amaziah of Judah. Okay, therefore this Joash, okay, because he's fighting against Judah, this Joash must be not from Judah, must be the king of Israel. Okay, so you think through, how can Judah king fight against Judah king? And they are all descendants, right? Own family. So this Joash is the king of Israel. Okay, he was buried in Samaria with the other kings of Israel. That's a proof that he's the king of Israel. So NIV translated Jehoash to differentiate. So every time the king of the north, they just put Jehoash. Every time king of the south, Joash to differentiate. Okay, NIV helps us. Now both Joash and Jehoash by chapter 13 verse 13, both of them are killed. So they mentioned Joash again. What? Two of them died. This is because this guy, what is happening? Okay, it's because this is a flashback. They say the king has died, but then they give an incident flashback when he was alive. So sometimes it's like that. You read the Bible, there's flashback. And you know, in some Bible, the chronology is not the same. They will write, and then they go back to what happened in the past. Or sometimes they tell you the overview, what happened. And then they go back to the detail. And then after the overview, this guy died. But because they give an overview, then they go to detail. They got all these kind of things. Which is some of the movies you watch, tell the story and then go flashback, and then come back again, then flashback. If you don't keep track, you'll end up in IMH. Now, 14:16 again is a flashback to Joash of Israel. So you need to kind of understand that there are such things, and you don't need to be a linguist or no need to be a professor or whatever. You just need to understand there are some of these things. So when people say, oh, the Bible full of errors and all, they don't understand this kind of background information, so they get confused. So NIV consistently translates one way or the other. So does this mean NIV is a better Bible than King James Version or NASB? Well, the answer is no. It just means that NIV has made the choice of what is the correct translation. Okay, NIV is good for most readers. Most of us, we don't know Hebrew, don't know Greek, never go to Bible college. Yeah, just read NIV. Okay, so it's helpful for most lay Bible readers as it avoids confusion. However, for scholars who read Hebrew, Greek, and who want to go back to the source material, they may not agree with some choices that NIV make. Maybe not about the kings, but in other choice words. So, or maybe because he's a Lutheran, he's a Anglican, he's a Methodist, their theology different. So they come to this word, they prefer to slant it to their own presuppositions. So scholars, they may prefer to read the original and make conclusion for themselves. So if you are a scholar, if you know Hebrew, Greek, you're a scholar, throw away NIV, read King James and NASB. But if you're not a scholar, just read NIV, okay? Don't confuse yourself. Now, each version of the Bible has its own purpose and target readers. So that's why besides NIV, King James, NASB, you also got Good News Bible and other thing. Good News Bible is a very simple English for people whose English is not so good, maybe primary 6 or something, your English not so good. You read that, because you read the normal, you may get confused lah. Okay, so Good News Bible is good for some people, but it's not very good for Bible study. Okay, you want to do serious Bible study, it's no good. If you want to do deep Bible study, you have to go to, if you want to be a seminary professor, you want to write theological books, even NIV may not be sufficient. You may need to do word study and so on. Okay, so appreciate different versions of the Bible. They're all okay. The important thing is not the words, the message. So you have the pictorial Bible, the picture Bible for small children, right? You're not going to use that for your CG Bible study, right? I hope you don't bring your children picture Bible. Yeah. It's not for us. That's for children. You don't expect children to read our Bible. They have to read something simple. But the important thing is the picture Bible. Is the message still true or not? The basic message. You don't need to have a lot of words, but the pictures, do they tell you the right story? So as long as it tell you the gospel message, then that's fine. Okay. Okay, 9:05. Okay, so look at the kings of Israel and the kings of Judah. Okay, so there are 19 of them here under Israel, 19 of them under Judah, North Kingdom, South Kingdom. This is the Davidic kingdom. Okay. Look at this guy, Jeroboam. As I said, there are two Jeroboam in Israel itself. The first guy was called Jeroboam. Second guy is also called Jeroboam. Okay, the Bible doesn't call them Jeroboam 1 and 2. We just put there to differentiate. And look, there's one Ahaziah here in Israel. There's another Ahaziah in Judah. And there's a Jehoahaz in Israel. There's also a Jehoahaz in Judah. There's one guy with two names, as I mentioned just now, Azariah, Uzziah. There's a guy with two names who's also got a counterpart on the other side, also two names, same name. Okay, and similarly here, Joash. So there are two kings in Israel who's got two names, similar to two kings in Judah, also two names, identical name. This guy Tibni is mentioned in the Bible. Tibni was not ruler over all Israel, but apparently just part of Israel. So at one point, this guy Tibni and Omri, they are like fighting for who's going to be king. So this guy was on one part, Omri was the other. So eventually Omri defeated Tibni and ruled over all Israel. So officially, Omri is the king. Tibni is just want to be king, but didn't make it. Atalia, she's a woman, okay? She's the mother of this guy, Azariah. When this guy Isaiah was killed, she killed all his children. She's a grandmother. Grandmother killed all the grandchildren, okay, and became queen. Instead of king, she became queen mother. But fortunately, one of the sons was secretly saved, and he grew up and later becomes king. That's Joash. Okay, so this is a queen. Although she's from the line of David, we don't recognize queens and all. The line is for sons, so we only recognize kings. So although she ruled for some time, officially she's not the king. She's not in the line of David for kingship. Just to mention. Okay, so far all very simple, right? Okay, you don't need to know everything. You just need to know there are some of these issues. Okay, a major problem in kings is chronological error. You try to compare this king, that king, like what I did. Like, how come the name changed? And sometimes, how come the time a bit different? Or they get confused. Bible wrong again. Okay. Here's one solution to it. The solution is taken from this A Chronology of the Hebrew Kings by Edwin Tiller. Okay, Judah and Israel had different calendar years. They're all Jews, but they had different calendar years. Okay, so like in English, we got January. Every year is January, start January to January. That's our calendar year. For Judah, they had Nisan, And for Israel, Northern Kingdom, Tishri. So their calendar year start from different months. Okay. So if I translate to English, for Judah, the Southern Kingdom start from March to March. For Israel, the Northern Kingdom start from September to September. Okay, so their calendar year is different. Okay, this is similar to today's calendar year versus financial year. So most accountants, they are talking in terms of financial year, and we normal people talking about calendar year, January to January. Then if you go into accounts department, you start talking, oh, the year closing in December. They say, no, it doesn't close in December. Our year closing is in April. No, what crazy thing? Because they are talking about financial year and so on. Okay. So when you date the king's ascension, the king is becoming king, right? There are two kinds of dating. One is ascension year, by ascension year, one by non-ascension year. So for one style, they say the king, the first year is called ascension year. He ascended to the throne. This is the first year is called ascension year. Second year is the first year. Second year is the first year. Third year is the second year, and so on. For the non-ascension, first year is first year, second year, third year is third year. Okay, so if you read about this king and that king, how come missing like 1 year or 2 years is because of this? One guy begins with ascension year, one guy begins with first year. Okay. Now the older generation will remember last time HDB blocks start with ground floor and then first floor, right? Ground floor, the first floor, we call it ground floor, and then first floor, second floor. Then later they changed to ground floor is called first floor. So there's some blocks, ground floor is the same as new blocks, first floor. So ground floor, first floor. Second floor is first floor, but here second floor is second floor. So confusing, but now it's all standardized, right? In fact, you go to Jurong Point, they got the old Jurong Point and the new Jurong Point. And the fourth floor here, the fourth floor there is different because one is on a higher ground, and so you even there, if you go, it's happening like that. So the kings of Judah, Jeroboam, Jephthah, and all these guys, Israel. Okay. Now, when they note the kings of Judah, they go by ascension years. Okay. When they note the kings of Israel, they go by non-ascending years. Okay, that's how they practice. In the record of the kings and all, they record this way. So when you study the book of the records of the kings of Judah, when you study the record of the king of Israel, you must understand they are using different calendar years, so it will be offset by 1 year. Okay. To make it more complicated, at one point, the kings of Judah and the kings of Israel had intermarriage. When they intermarried, the kings of the south followed the kings of the north. So these guys, their ascension year suddenly become non-ascension year. Okay. And in later part, both of them start using ascension year. So even within one record, you can have ascension year, non-ascension year, or in this case, ascension year, non-ascension year, go back to ascension year. So then you can cause some of the dates. Hey, how come I calculate a few years off because of all this kind of thing? Okay. Now you don't need to know all this. You just need to know there's something like that. Okay. There's no test. Yeah, your salvation not affected if you don't know all this. Okay. But if people say, oh, how come it's 1 year off? The Bible is full of error. Because you don't understand there are such things. Okay. Okay. The other thing is more than one king ruling. Normally the father by title and the son in practice. I think in China, India, this kind of thing also quite common. It's called co-regency. So in 2 Kings 8:18, it says, in the 5th year of Joram, son of Ahab, king of Israel, when Jehoshaphat was king of Judah. Who is the king? Jehoshaphat. He's the king of Judah. His son began his reign. Okay, this guy is still king, but his son starts to reign. So there are kind of two kings. One holding the title, one executing. One operational king, one holding the title. Maybe the father don't trust the son. In case he make him king, he may kick out the father or whatever. Whatever their reason, so they are two father and son starting at the same time as king. Not starting, I mean, both were king, having the title of king. Okay. You don't need a break. I need to drink water. 9:15 already. Maybe we should stop. Still got kings, still got prophets. I don't know whether I can. Okay, let me see if I can go 5-10 minutes more. Okay, notice that both nations had 19 kings after Solomon. Okay, Solomon is the United Kingdom. Saul, David, Solomon. That's united. After that, the kingdom split into two parts, Israel and Judah. And both sides had 19 kings in total before they are exiled. Israel exiled first, Judah exiled later. Now, the exile is not at the same time. It's not like both nations exile same time. So the exile happens like this. In the 6th year of Hezekiah, the whole nation of Israel was exiled. Okay. So after the 6th year of Hezekiah, Israel doesn't exist anymore. Only Judah exists. Okay. So if you want to draw, you must shift Hezekiah down parallel to this. Okay. If chronologically. Now, the whole of this thing, you want to add up all these things, it comes to 248 years. So the 248 years is only from here to here. How come? Because you look, this guy is 52 years, got 40 year, all 40, 50 years. Down here, 2 years, 9 years, 10 years, 1 month, 6 months. More kings, but a shorter span of time, okay? So 19 kings were squeezed in between these 12 kings, okay? Since it starts 6 years of Hezekiah, then you need to calculate 6 years to make up the numbers. And Judah is only exiled much later. 248 years Israel lasted, and about 130 over years after them, then Judah is exiled. Okay, so between Judah and Israel exile, there's about 130 or over years. So you need to bear all those things in mind. Okay, all the kings of Israel. When I say all, I mean ALL, all, means everyone. Every single one of them were wicked, they were evil. Okay, they are all considered bad kings. There's no good king in Israel. Very easy to remember. How many good kings in Israel? 0. Okay. Judah had some good kings. Okay, here is red is bad and green is good king. Okay, green is good for the eyes, so green. Okay, so there were a couple of good kings, and there were also bad kings in Judah. Okay, and one reason why Judah outlasted Israel is because of these good kings. Because the good king, God let them survive. Remember, until Hezekiah, then they are set exile. So by the time Hezekiah, all of them are bad. And one of the popular thing I always tell you is what? God doesn't want to judge people until the cup of wrath overflow. So within the time of Hezekiah, from Jeroboam to Hezekiah, Israel consistently bad, the cup of wrath overflow, exile. Up to Hezekiah, a lot of good kings in between, just a few bad ones, so not so bad. But after Hezekiah, it becomes just like Israel, all bad, only one good. So again, cup of wrath overflows and judgment comes. God is not siao, okay? He doesn't just anyhow punish people. Okay, the kings of Israel ruled less than 29 years. You look at all of them, less than 29. The highest is 28, except for one guy, Jeroboam #2. He's 40 years. The rest all less than 29 years. When it comes to the kings of Judah, there are 8 kings who ruled more than 25 years. See here, not many 25 years. So 8 kings rule more than 25, of which 4 of them rule more than 40 years. The highest in Israel is 40 years. But there are 4 in Judah who are 40 years and above. Okay. Israel also had more kings ruling less than 3 years. Less than 3 years. 1 month, 6 months, 1 year, 2 year, 2 year, 2 year. Okay. And this guy Nadab was murdered. #2 murdered. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 guys are murdered in Israel. Judah, 1, 2, 3, 4 guys are murdered. Okay. So more kings in Israel are murdered as compared to Judah. So there were no good kings, 8 kings on Judah, 8 good kings. 7 were murdered, 4 were murdered. There are 9 dynasties in Israel. In Judah, there's only 1 dynasty. All of them are family, passed down either to son or brother or whatever, within the house of Judah, because of the covenant of God. God made sure that there's somebody in the house of David sitting on the throne. Okay, so they're all related family members, one house. But here is different. Once I kill you, I take over, then my family rules. After that, somebody kill me, then the other guy's family rule. So many households leading. Okay, so there are 9 dynasties, only 1 dynasty. 19 kings in 248 years, 19 kings in 387 years. The longest reigning king is a bad king, Manasseh. 55 years, the longest, and he's the bad one. And in his reign, God said, I will exalt Judah. It is in his time that God said, I will exalt Judah because of all that Manasseh has done. Good kings, Joash and Amaziah, were also murdered. Okay, good kings also murdered. Bad king rule very long. Good kings have bad son, bad kings have good son. Okay, here all bad, consistent bad lah. But here bad king got good son, good king got bad son, and so on. Okay, the point is not a simple case of blessings for good, curses for evil. True to life's experiences. Generally, you can say if you do good, you'll be blessed. That's a general statement. But the reality, it doesn't always happen. Good can happen to bad people, bad can happen to good people. That is the reality. Stop believing in karma. Karma is nonsense. Okay, it doesn't mean you're good, you'll get good, bad, you'll get bad. Life is not like that.